All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today we're going to be looking at 5 coaches that are on the hot seat heading into the 2022 football season. The first one's kind of an obvious one. Scott Frost at Nebraska. He's 3-9 this past season. It's the 4th straight losing season for Frost since he took over as alma mater. The Cornhuskers, though, they were probably one of the best 3-win teams you could ever find. They lost 8 of those 9 games by 1 possession. And all 9 total were by 1 score. The lone exception was that 9-point loss to Ohio State, where they held them to only 26 points. Frost has failed to accomplish much at Nebraska. He's not really recruited well in the state of Florida like he expected to. The offense is not been anywhere near what we expected. Adrian Martinez has had some bright moments and some pretty good production before, now transferring to Kansas State. But altogether, no, he's not accomplished much in Nebraska. On the field, Oregon recruiting, 2021 was pretty encouraging because despite going 3-9, it was as encouraging as you could get because they still played very close ball games. They played really good on defense. He's still got a 15-29 record in his time at Nebraska. He's 0-14 against ranked opponents, 5-20 in those one-score games, and then 10-25 in the conference. They just haven't done much under Scott Frost, and this is obviously his make-or-break year. This fall's going to be tough because progress is yet to be evident. He did go 3-9. But it was arguably his best team. He only won 3 games with him, so arguably his best team in his tenure in Lincoln, that is, in my eyes. This year is going to be tough, especially if they amplified pressure. I don't really see how Frost can make it out as, the head coach going into 2023. I think they need to get at least, I don't know, maybe 5 wins. I really feel like they got to make a bowl game this season. I think anything less than the postseason will lead to Frost getting axed. Him being an alumni, that's obviously going to string things out a good bit. You'll get extra time, I think, as an alumni. Administrations typically will do that with familiar faces, but Frost, this is a make-or-break year. I honestly don't really see him being the head coach come 23, though, because he loses a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, and they've obviously not been able to replenish very well whatsoever, so I think this is obviously a make-or-break year for Frost. We'll see what happens, but it's going to be tough to survive, this upcoming season and still be the head coach come December. Look at number 2, Jeff Scott, USF. Scott's a good coach. He was really good at Clemson as the OC, but he hasn't did much of anything that's impressive since arriving in Tampa. USF, they are 3-18 over the past 2 seasons. The offense, it's been exactly the same in the past 2 seasons, but they've had some playmakers. They had one running back score 15 touchdowns. Brian Battle had 3 kickoff return touchdowns. So they've had short bursts of talent, but not for the most part. The offense has really not did much in 2 seasons so far. The defense did make some slight improvements in 2022. It did still rank second to last in the conference in points per game allowed. USF has never really been good at football, though, since joining the AAC, that is, outside of the Quentin Flowers years, of course. And a game-changing talent like that doesn't appear to be walking through the doors anytime soon. Scott will likely get 2 more years, though, I think, before the administration looks to make a change, but expectations aren't that high to begin with. Regardless of how you spin it, though, Clemson OC is sure to be on the hot seat. Again, I think he'll get 2 more years at least before they look to make a decision. Expectations aren't too high, so what can you really do? His hot seat's obviously going to be growing, doesn't matter who you are. It's the biggest problem at programs like Kansas. They keep going through coaches every 3 or 4 years because nobody does anything because it's hard to do anything. So it's kind of what's going on here at USF. So Scott will get a lengthy leash, I think, but he's certainly going to be on the hot seat because you're not winning games. So David Shaw from Stanford, this one's obviously going to catch some eyes. No, I don't really believe that Shaw's on that big of a hot seat, but considering the past few years, the downhill spiral, it's going to be a topic of discussion. He's one of the nation's highest paid coaches, and deservedly so. Despite being one of the good guys in the sport, though, the reality is the regression of the Stanford program is getting to a point where I think job status is going to come to question a bit. I do think Shaw's more likely to retire before he would get fired. That's how far away I think we are from this, but I do think it needs to be noted that the last few seasons have not been great. Stanford won double-digit games in 5 of his first 6 seasons, won 9 each in 2018 and 19, but since then it has been downwards. The Cardinal went 4-2 during a COVID year, but that was sandwiched in between a 4-8 and 3-9 mark. The Cardinals' entire identity seemingly disappeared overnight in 2019. Bryce Hall came back after being a perennial Heisman pick for many people, and they didn't do much that season, and they haven't did anything at all in the trenches since. I don't see yet how they're going to return to a strength as it is now an incredible weakness in the trenches. With one of the nation's worst running games, their pass rush is also terrible. I think both of them are outside the top 120 in college football. They just lost their starting running back in Austin Jones. Shaw is still pulling in good recruiting classes, though. I think they just landed the top recruiting class in the Pac-12. Of course, that probably won't last long with what Lincoln Riley's doing, but for this year's cycle, they did do that. They're still relatively disciplined as well, but Stanford can't really get much of an upgrade. Shaw's a former alumni who's brought great success in more ways than one to the program, so him getting fired would take a repeated season of mediocrity, but I think his seat has a slight torch underneath it, and I think we're clearly moving towards repeated seasons of mediocrity. I think Shaw has the support from everybody in the stands, all the staff, everybody. I think everyone's on board with Shaw. But I think as the years go down and we continue to see this, then I think his job security will certainly get into question, and I think that's really going to be a slight topic of discussion heading into the year. Geoff Collins from Georgia Tech. Collins was expected to be given a quite long leash in the post-Paul Johnson era. They looked to transform the offense from the triple option to a more modern style spread attack. The offense was clearly going to take some time, at least 3 to 4 years in my eyes, because to complete schematic change like that is going to take a long time. You need at least a handful of years, which I think they're going to give Collins that. But his expertise is on the defensive side of the ball, and the Yellow Jackets have not made much noise on that front. They seemingly got worse on that side of the ball this past season. Collins has made some waves though in the transfer portal, but I really have no idea what the outlook of this program is. The two best young players they had on the team, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jared Ivey, those guys just transferred to the SEC. Jeff Sims at quarterback, he has a pretty high ceiling, but he's he's the lone expectation though. Lone exception, that is. I don't see much promising talent that stands out at the moment in time for Georgia Tech. They started the year with a loss to NIU, who ended up being a pretty good football team, but still, they shouldn't have lost to that team. And then the end of the year, they got outscored 100-0 combined to Georgia and Notre Dame in the final 2 weeks. It was a very tough schedule last year for Georgia Tech, but still, they lost to NIU, turned around and blew out North Carolina. It's pretty odd, but 100-0 the end of the year. They didn't put up a fight one bit against some of the top programs in college football, so that's a concern. There isn't much to be excited about for the Yellow Jackets. Again, though, this offensive transition will be tough for any coach to overcome. I think a little progress needs to be shown in 2022, though. Obviously, his seat, I don't think it's that hot because of the situation he walked into, but I think, kind of like Shaw, this is the year where if nothing's being shown in terms of progress, I think some chatter is going to start. And Collins will certainly be there if Georgia Tech does not show some type of improvement. Karl Dorrell, Colorado. I'm not really sure why Colorado hired Dorrell to begin with. Maybe someone close to the school can comment, a fan, something. Mel Tucker resigning in February 2020, which is typically quite late in the process in the NFL and college especially. It didn't really give the Buffaloes many options. Colorado was solid in his first season under Dorrell, 4-2. Jarrett Richard won the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year award. But again, it was a short season, and this past year was quite embarrassing. The offense was abysmal. The passing attack was almost outdid statistically by the service academies. They only had maybe 40 more passing yards per game than Army and Navy, those guys. That's not going to cut it. It also caused the running game to take a nosedive, and now Broussard is transferred to Michigan State. I had higher expectations for the Buffalo's defense as well. They featured a strong amount of talent. Carson Wells, Nate Landman, Mekhi Blackman, they had really good players. Their defense was a bitter disappointment. Colorado obviously had a very tough schedule, and they only beat one team with a winning record, though, when they're out to a 4-8 mark. Many might not feel that Dorrell was on the hot seat after only 2 seasons, but I'm not counting on the journeyman wide receiver coach to elevate the program to a 500 level. I think the Buffaloes will soon again be looking for another head coach. I'm rooting for Dorrell. I like Colorado. I like when they're doing well. It's nice to see a winning team in Boulder, but this has kind of been a theme the last couple of years with the Buffaloes outside of some of those Mike McIntyre teams. But Colorado's a bitter disappointment this year. I really thought they could have contended for even 5 wins, and I figured they would upset a team or two. They almost knocked off Texas A&M early in the year, but again, they were in a tough situation, pretty much in a road game. The Aggies were with the backup quarterback, and Colorado did not pounce on opportunities they had in that game. Rest of the year against their better opponents, they just didn't really show up whatsoever. So, very disappointing year from Colorado. I think those are the 5 guys who are really on the hot seat coming into the year. That's going to be it for today's episode. Comment below who you think should be on this list, who shouldn't be on the list. Like, subscribe. See you next time.